is the success of the demonstration measured for this program?
The City of New York and Department of Transportation determines where future bus lanes will be in consultation with, I'm sure, many different agencies and, in many cases, the local community. And they also, as I've been shown, can monitor the increases in not just bus ridership, but also bus speeds.
What was that last part?
They can also prove percentage increases in not just ridership, but also in bus speeds.
Okay. Well, I would argue that the speed has to do with the elimination of the number of stops that these rapid transit bus lines have eliminated, and not so much with the bus lane itself. But going back to, if we're going to be extending this proposal for 5 years, is that the proposal? Okay, so 5 years, and expanding it to 10 additional locations, what do they use in terms of analysis to demonstrate that this program has been successful?
Okay, so they have shown in the last phase, in phase 1, increases of between 10 to 25%, and a 10% increase in ridership.
Okay. So if we didn't have bus lanes, people wouldn't use the bus, in other words. Okay, moving on. In the memo, you compare this program to the city's red light program, in which you say it successfully reduced the incidence of red light violations. The red light program, as part of the state law when it was originally passed, required that a report be issued following the demonstration period to outline the success of the program, including accidents, increases in accidents. The city has not complied with this part of the law in terms of the red light cameras. So I'm not sure that we can trust them in saying that this demonstration has also been successful and should be extended. Has there been any talk from the city about releasing both the data of the increases in accidents and injuries with the red light cameras and this one in particular, the bus lane cameras? Because I believe that the bus lane cameras has led to an increase in accidents, at least in my community.
Okay, so I want to be very clear and just make sure that you understand that this is bus lane cameras, not red light cameras. And they do issue reports, and that is part of the legislation, that they should be issuing reports on its effectiveness every 2 years. And I mean, I would also like to add that, you know, on Staten Island in particular, they have come to leaders of the community and removed certain cameras when appropriate, and I'm sure that the city would be open to continuing those conversations.
I appreciate that, because I'm one of the ones who've complained most about the cameras, and we have been successful in getting some of them removed. And the only reason I brought up the red light cameras, because what you mentioned in your memo, that this program operates in as much as the same manner as the city's red light camera program. So my question was, why has not the city released information with regards to increases or decreases in accidents at both red light cameras and bus lane camera locations?
I don't believe that accidents are in their reports.
I'm sure they're not.
But you should certainly follow up with the City of New York and start that conversation.
Okay,
with them.
I think it's something that we should have discussed before the bill comes up for the vote, because I think that's something that we should all know as a body as to whether there have been increased accidents. You said that there would be 10 more routes. Can we anticipate one of those routes being on Staten Island?
I don't believe that's the case, but again, just talk to the City of New York about that.
But they have not indicated publicly whether which boroughs or which locations would receive it?
I am not the Staten Island
Okay.
Borough Commissioner, though I have played his role for the past couple of weeks on this bill. So I would probably just point you in that direction.
Okay. One of the biggest issues in my community have been that people coming in and out of parking lots, the curb cuts are very different on Staten Island as they are in Manhattan. We have curb cuts, we have a lot of driveways into parking lots of businesses, and one of the biggest issues have been people turning from the middle lane into these parking lots because they're afraid to get a ticket, a violation of $115. So has there been any discussion by the city on how to address this? Because I think this has led to an actual increase. I've witnessed them myself, actual accidents. I've witnessed near accidents taking place along Highland Boulevard on Staten Island. Has the city indicated that this is a problem that needs to be addressed?
Okay, so the allowed non-bus usages are making right turns, getting access to the curb, and avoiding emergency vehicles that are parked in the lane. It is the intention of the program to make sure that you're not parking in the lane for a substantial amount of time, that you're not just standing there with your vehicle, and that the bus lane is clear.
When the cameras first went into effect, I had a number of constituents who contacted my office about receiving violations because they would pass, you're supposed to make that first immediate right, and they would pass that first immediate right to be able to go into the parking lot, which then follows on the next block. Because obviously if you were to wait until you pass that intersection to then merge into the right lane, you could cause an accident. So instead of doing that, they decided to be safe about it and proceed past that intersection, make the next immediate right into a bank parking lot or a McDonald's parking lot. And as a result, they were getting numerous violations. The city, as a result of the local elected officials complaining, did put in regulation that it would be now the first immediate right or 200 feet. Is that language in this legislation? Because I didn't see it.
So they do take the context of the situation into account before issuing the ticket. It is also in the bill. It is also important to note in the bill we included a 60-day grace period because of many of the concerns that we heard. And a 60-day grace period would ensure that, people in the community have an understanding of where these cameras are, what the bus lane is all about, so that they can avoid getting the ticket.
Okay. But moving on, I would also say that some of these cameras have been in the past positioned. Well, actually, you know what? Maybe I should speak on the bill. Thank you. On the bill, please, Mr. Speaker.
On the bill, Ms. Malliotakis.
Like the red light camera program and the speed camera program, I also have a problem with cameras in the bus lanes. I believe that the success of the timeliness of the buses moving faster is really a direct result of the number of stops that have been eliminated from the program. So for instance, the S-79 on Highland Boulevard, about 50 stops on that line was eliminated, which led to the speediness of the bus. And it's not even much quicker, to be honest. But in terms of the violations, I think that the City of New York has utilized this program to set up these traps for people, literally traps. I don't even have another word to use for this. I've had numerous constituents of mine, mostly senior citizens, including my favorite constituents, my parents, who would make a turn into a parking lot and then get hit with a $115 violation. Because of people getting these violations over and over again, people now turn from the middle lane instead of turning safely from the right lane. And what you're seeing is, I believe, an increase in accidents, which the City of New York, I think, refuses to release any data to the accidents, the correlation of accidents and injuries related to both the bus lane cameras and the red light cameras for that very reason. I've had numerous people also get tickets for this one camera at the corner of Highland and Garrettson. I held a press conference last summer over this because it was completely ridiculous. The rule is you have to make the next immediate right. If you don't make the next immediate right turn possible, you get hit with a ticket. The next immediate right at Garrettson is a one-way street going in the opposite direction. You can't possibly make a right turn there. So constituents would proceed to the next block and get hit with a $115 summons. We'd have to fight back. We've got the summons, in some cases we got it reversed, but in other cases we were just able to get some of these locations, cameras shut down, and have the constituent unfortunately still have to pay those $115 fines. So I think the city needs to work more with the communities to see if it's even wanted in their particular community. Because I can tell you in my district, these cameras are not wanted. We've had a number of these spots removed. The one where my parents got that ticket at CVS on Old Town Road and Highland Boulevard, that was removed. The one at Highland and Hunter was shut down. And then they put in the 200 feet buffer. So now you have to make the next immediate right or 200 feet. So another thing I would also caution is the time that these cameras go into effect. On Staten Island, as I'm sure they go in the rest of the city, is at 3 p.m., rush hour going home. No one's coming home at 3 p.m. And what happens is the school is let out at 3 p.m. And what you have is 2 lanes that are full of traffic and then the third bus lane not being used at all, which is creating a tremendous amount of gridlock on Highland Boulevard on Staten Island. So what I would suggest to the DOT, which I have suggested, and maybe we need legislation to do so, would be to start that bus lane going into effect until at least 4 p.m. And that's when people actually return home from work and when you start seeing some of that rush hour traffic from Manhattan coming into effect. And the last thing I would just add is that the City of New York really has to do a better job of marking the bus lanes. When they first put the bus lanes into effect, they were red, nice bright red, and it said buses only. Now that's all washed away and you don't know what it is. So anybody that's driving down, the street, or if they're a visitor, if they're a family member coming from out of town, they don't know that that's even a bus lane. They don't know that those rules are in effect, and even the residents barely know them. And so for these reasons, I will be voting against this legislation. I think, again, it's just a revenue generator for the City of New York, creates more traffic than it actually helps in terms of Highland Boulevard. And I would like the City of New York to also understand that Staten Island is different from the rest of the boroughs. This may work in the other boroughs great, and I'm sure it does. But the curb cuts are different, the needs are different, and we rely mostly on our vehicles. And so, what we need on Staten Island is more buses, not bus lanes. I'll be voting against this, and I urge my colleagues to do the same.
Mr. Silver.
Will the sponsor yield?
Will you yield? Sponsor yields.
Can you tell us about the adjudication of these so-called tickets?
So the New York City Department of Finance adjudicates the tickets.
And what kind of evidence is presentable at that?
They receive video that's viewed online with PIN numbers, the date and time and location.
And how do they get VIN numbers on a mobile?
PIN numbers, sorry, PIN numbers.
PIN numbers, not VIN numbers. Am I correct that these devices can be affixed to the front of the buses, which was the original intent of this program?
No, they do not attach them to the actual bus.
Well, how else are there mobile devices as talked about in the bill?
They're not mobile, they're fixed.
Well, I suggest you read.
Mobile is allowed, but the City of New York has decided to just do fixed.
Well, line 13, 14 of your bill says such bus lane photo devices may be stationary or mobile.
Correct.
So they are not mobile?
The City of New York has phased out mobile.
But you haven't phased that out of the bill.
Correct.
Now, in the circumstance where you have a 2-lane, 1 bus lane, 1 traffic lane, and you have a UPS, FedEx truck, which is pretty common, in the 1 lane, double parked, requiring a motorist to go into the bus lane or wait until the FedEx driver finishes his deliveries. How will that adjudication be handled?
So I have been told that there is a wide angle on the camera so that they can watch that footage during the adjudication.
But the camera will issue the ticket.
After review by a technician.
I mean, one of the requirements of the demonstration program was there had to be at least 2 lanes of traffic, which you are taking out in this bill to accommodate that problem.
That's correct.
On the bill, Mr. Speaker.
On the bill, Mr. Silver.
I think this clearly is a revenue enhancer for the city of New York and nothing else. And the obligations of drivers to plead not guilty and to go to court under very common circumstances in the city of New York. This original demonstration program was restricted only to select bus lanes, which were mostly the express buses, which may very well have speeded up because they were on express bus lanes. We are now dealing with a situation where any bus, any route, can have this bus camera or bus lane camera on it. We are authorizing those cameras to be mobile according to the legislation, and the original contemplation was to have them on the front of the buses, which could not take a picture of the intersection as the driver sees it. Whether there will be or won't be a mobile bus, there's 5 years that we are authorizing now, and we don't know what the city will do in that 5 years. I intend to vote against this legislation because I think it is a trap for motorists in the city of New York. It is designed for nothing more than revenue for the city of New York, and for those reasons, I urge my colleagues to vote no on it.
Mr. Perry. Read the last. Mr. Tatone.
I can't believe I have to speak after Mr. Silver and Ms. Malliotakis agreed with each other.
Take a deep breath, Mr. Tatone.
Where the heck am I? I normally don't disagree with using cameras, photography, to create evidence of someone doing something wrong. I particularly agree with it with speed cameras. I disagree with them on red light cameras because they're dangerous. The situation that Ms. Malliotakis actually described on Staten Island about having cameras for enforcement and then people being forced to turn into one-way traffic is actually really on point. And I firmly believe that agree with Mr. Silver that this is truly a revenue generator and nothing more. But more, for my district where we barely have bus lanes, what we do have coming on Staten Island is the New York City's only outlet mall center, the world's largest wheel, Ferris wheel, 2 or 3 hotel chains coming into one area. And what we also have on Staten Island is our city DOT's head so far up its butt, it cannot see straight for anything. They have decided in the interest of Staten Island that once all this development is completed, then they will commence a study to see how we'll deal with the transportation crisis that will ensue. I don't begrudge the other 4 boroughs getting, or at least the city thinking about enhanced transportation in the boroughs, and I'm sure the Rockaways is not getting anything out of this. But to ask me to stand here and support a bill that will enhance bus rapid transit in other boroughs that will be nothing more, and add cameras to ticket people as revenue generator, while Staten Islanders are sitting there waiting for a plan to have a plan to deal with transportation, I just can't go for it. With all due respect to the sponsor, I simply cannot vote for this bill in good conscience. I cannot ask my colleagues here to vote for this bill in good conscience because it's a waste of taxpayer money. So, I'm really thrilled that I get to agree with Mr. Silver and Ms. Malliotakis today. And I am urging my colleagues for the city of New York, really send a message to this department, the city's Department of Transportation. Send the message to them that they are not allowed, that we will not stand for them to send half-assed plans up to this chamber and ask us to vote yes on it. Thank you.